Welcome to the Indie Corner, where we talk about all things independent comics. I'm Mikey.
I'm Lynn.
And I'm Hanna.
And today, we're back at it again. Another spooky special on Halloween Day. Happy Halloween to everybody. Really can't, even though it sucks this year, but
it's still spooky.
It's still spooky season. So you know what?
Full moon tonight. Extra hour.
Oh yeah. Extra spooky.
Extra spooky.
The best Halloween ever, and we're stuck inside.
Honestly. And so today we're doing another spooky book, actually a follow-up to the episode we did last week. Correct? Last week. We're doing the Wytches Bad Egg Halloween special, written by Scott Snyder with art by Jock again. I'm excited to talk about this book because it was honestly, as we said last week with Wytches, it is better than Volume 1. Somehow. I don't know why, but it's so much more interesting. But yeah, so essentially, like, for our audience, viewers, whatever, this is essentially like it's a one shot that is kind of its own, like a standalone type thing. You could just read it separately without reading the first volume, but it's also a prequel to the anticipated sequel, which is Volume 2, Bad Egg, that will probably never come out, but like, yeah. But yeah, so anyone, wait, Lynn, since you did not read, since you weren't on the episode last week and we basically gave you a synopsis of what happened, what is your thoughts on like the whole Wytches world, like it from what we've told you and what have you? Like, that's what I'm just curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting concept. And you know, I was really drawn by what I read in this one shot, and I'm excited to see, you know, what the rest of the series has to offer, even though you said there's only one volume right now.
Yeah.
But especially hearing you say that you think the one shot's more interesting than Volume 1. I'm curious to see what it's like going into it, you know, from the opposite way, coming in from the one shot and then reading
and then reading Volume 1 after. Okay, dope. All right, so we are going to begin now.
we didn't already begin?
No. So we're going to begin now. Volume 1 of Wytches. I love this of the Bad Egg Halloween special. I love the fuck out of this cover so much. This cover is so cool. It's very spooky and red, but mostly spooky. And so this issue starts off in a nice suburban area. I don't really know where this thing takes place. I kind of, if Hanna could if Hanna knows, that would be nice. But like so it starts off in a very suburban area where we get introduced to Sebastian, and Sebastian lives with his mother. I also forget the mother's name, but she exists. And essentially he's just talking about how essentially, like, you know, what it's like, how like they just recently moved to this town, and how his father, I think, either left or passed away. I don't really remember, but he essentially saying that, like, oh yeah, my dad he served as a soldier, and he had this thing where he'd always say, like, everything's always standard issue. So, and throughout this whole book, Sebastian is always describing something as standard issue, and it's kind of funny. But essentially, he is getting ready for school. His mom essentially tells him to, because he rides his bike to school, doesn't take the bus. So he eventually, like, don't take any shortcuts. You know, stay on the main road. Be safe. I love you. Blah blah blah. So then he rides out, and he decides to inevitably take a shortcut and not listen to his mother. While he's doing this, he's checking the time. But like he said, he's probably going to save a bunch of time taking a shortcut. And essentially what happens is he goes into the shortcut and he runs into a neighbor of his, and he said this neighbor, his name is Mr. Greller, I think. Yeah, Geller. Sorry, Mr. Geller, and he's Laurel's mother. It's someone who's in his his class, and it's their neighbor. And then he said she's offering him a ride home, I'm a ride to school. Obviously, since Sebastian's a responsible child and says doesn't like strangers, of course he says no to the ride, but thanks him anyway. But the driver is insisting that come on, it's easier. It's fine. It's no problem. It's better than just taking your bike to school. Then we hear something whacking on in the back of his van, and it's just like, what the fuck is that? And then Lucy's just like, the driver's like, oh, don't worry about that, it's nothing. Is like, but then Sebastian's getting very suspicious. It kind of seems like he kind of knows what this is. And then we in the back we hear the familiar, like the chit sound. And then Sebastian immediately is like, holy shit, starts to run on his bike. The guy, his Mr. Geller, decides to fucking drive his van into Sebastian. And then essentially is like, sorry, Sebastian. And he gets out the car, gets Sebastian, and essentially he's like, I'm sorry, but like, it's hungry. I have to do this. And essentially it is revealed he opens the trunk back of the van and it's a fucking witch. And he's about to feed this kid to a witch. Sebastian tries to try to like run away, but it's like the guy has a really bad grip on him until a random bystander appears out of nowhere and decides to fucking stab Mr. Geller and inevitably kills him. Like as what is appeared here in this page. And it is revealed this mysterious Spice, this Good Samaritan, is Sebastian's mother. And it is essentially revealed that Sebastian and his mom are a part of the Irons, which is what, if y'all have seen last episode, when we talked about witches, the Irons are essentially the witch hunters that track and hunt down witches. And this is why I love this book so much, is because it literally, we saw in volume 1, with the Rook family and having just being normal human beings, being enthralled into the witch's world. But now we're getting it through the other perspective, where it's a perspective of witch hunters, who a witch hunting family that hunts down witches. I think it's so cool. After his mom saves Sebastian, she reminds him, yeah, this is why I tell you not to take fucking shortcuts. And it transitions back to Sebastian in class, and their teachers discussing essentially the concept of family lineage and like a family tree, and how important it is to discuss and reflect on our ancestors to like understand our family roots and stuff like that. So essentially, they've been tasked an assignment to create a family tree, and it's due in after the weekend. And then we get a panel of this kid, looking at Sebastian, and the teacher saying no secrets, which is clearly funny because Sebastian has a secret that he's a witch hunter. And then turns out this kid is named Jackson, and he's essentially Sebastian's best friend. And they're, according to their teacher, they're the bad kids, and he refers to them as bad eggs, which is funny because they embrace that shit. It transitions back to at night. Later that day, Sebastian and Jackson are in Jackson's house, where they share a hobby of, they've created this massive racetrack together, and it's very sweet. And essentially, they're just talking about how, like, listen, there's this competition coming up. The prize is it's like $2,000. It's like, listen, I think with the car that we've created, we can do this. And it's just like, they're just talking about what they could do with the money. And Jackson says he wants to pay off his parents' mortgage, pay off the next 2 months of his parents' mortgage and all that other cool stuff. So then essentially, we get more of a rundown of Jackson's family, and his mom is essentially I believe is either a doctor or a nurse. I'm not really too sure. And his father, I think, runs a business or a company. I don't really remember. But yeah, essentially, but Sebastian essentially wants to call it a night and then he leaves, goes across the street to his house, where his mother's holding a pig, and which is funny because they have plans for this pig. It's gonna be something important. And she essentially is just being like, hey, like, what were you doing at Jackson? So you were at Jackson's again? He's like, yeah, we were just, testing out our cars. And he's like, listen, son, follow me. We have something to discuss. And essentially she's like, Mom, Sebastian's like, son, your friend Jackson, his family is suspected of being, of being a high horn. And this is something new to the witches world that we for 3 years of the last one. This wasn't mentioned before, but essentially they're very responsible for essentially starting boroughs, like new boroughs in towns, which is interesting because like when I first read this, when we read volume 1, I assumed that just witches just made their own boroughs, but essentially what it looks like is that they've tasked humans to make boroughs for them, for obviously for benefits and what have you. Um, and essentially, like, so his parents might, like I was saying, like, the parents might look like nice people, they might look normal, but at the end of the day, like, they're not. And for instance, essentially, high horns, they essentially, like, they make this gigantic pit, like, somewhere, like, near where they live. So she theorizes that this pit is probably in their backyard, probably in the woods somewhere. And essentially, these type of high horns, they're essentially tasked with nurturing a witch baby, a young witch. And essentially what it looks like, it's like by being high horns, Jackson role is probably to get eaten, is probably to be food for this baby. So essentially, like, what she thinks they're like her Jackson's parents essentially had him not for obviously just being responsible parents, but to essentially like have him to be witch food, which is really fucked up. And essentially like so essentially they're trying to formulate this plan. Jackson, so like what his mom is trying to do is essentially kill Jackson's parents before they decide to feed him to the witch, or maybe even kill Jackson if Jackson's in on it. They don't know if Jackson's in on it or not. But obviously, like, Sebastian's a little hesitant because since he's a child, he like it seems to be like he actually likes Jackson. He likes actually having a friend because he said growing up he moved around a lot because they've just been hunting down. His mom has been hunting down witches along with his father, and he's been trained since at a very young age to learn and try to like hunt down these witches. And while they're going down into their secret witch hunting bunker, there we get introduced to another character named Gage. Gage is essentially he's a part of the Irons. He is essentially he's in charge of making like weapons and all the other cool stuff. So he's like the weapons guy. Sebastian doesn't really like him, but which I think is very funny. But essentially, they're they're discussing more and more about the plan, and this is where the pig comes in. And essentially, they've created this concoction to essentially track to like know who's a high horn or not. And essentially, it's this substance that when a high horn is doused with the substance, it it will just it will start to burn them, but most likely just give them a rash, some bruising. It won't kill them. So they tested out on on this pig who has been given who has been eating their Jackson's family's human waste to test if they're how much how if they're high horns or not. She throws a substance, the pig disintegrates, and yeah. So then that comes to show that they're high horns. So then it transitions back to essentially what Jackson's been saying, that his dad uh his dad essentially was tasked to essentially go to a burrow and kill some rooted runs because his ancestors were irons that were known for killing rooted ones. And for our viewers who don't know what rooted ones are, and Lynn, I don't know if you probably don't know either, but rooted ones are like the very, very big witches. Like they're gigantic, they're enormous, and like they're kind of like rooted into the ground. So like they're essentially like a part of a part of the borough essentially. And they're very terrifying. They're not fun. But
All right.
essentially like his dad, I believe either died or disappeared. Like he never came back after being tasked with this mission to go and kill these rooted ones.
I think they just separated.
What happened?
I'm pretty sure they just separated because
They just separated.
Yeah, there's a point where she says like he did something specific. I don't know if you'll get to that eventually. If we get to that point and you don't say anything, I'll bring it up again.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But she says he did something, and she was like, I couldn't stand to see him after that, so she left. Also, I also don't remember the mom's name because I'm bad at names. But
yeah.
She is in Volume 1. Clara. Yeah. I was like, it's
it says right here, Clara. Yeah.
Or something. I was like, yeah, Clara.
Okay. Gotcha. So, all right. So essentially, we had some panels of Jackson and his parents, and essentially like also for our audience, Sebastian's narrating this entire thing, and he basically calls people that are affiliated with witches like sucklers because they do favors for witches for something in return. Like as we said in the last episode, like the witches, they are attracted to people's wants, and so if you want something, if you want something, you have to do something for them in order to receive it. So it could be like like an increased lifespan, the cure of an illness, like what have you. And essentially like he's just saying like, like Jackson's father is thought that he's trying to build a burrow here in the woods behind the town. And we're I don't know if we're I think is like while I was reading this, I was unsure if it was just Jackson's parents that were in on the witches or if it was the entire town. But I would assume that it would be the entire town because witches are always around. If witches are in a town, the entire town knows about it.
Yeah. It was focused on his parents, but I think because of Mr. Geller, it's kind of implied that more people are in on it. It might not be the whole town since they're building a burrow.
Like, yeah.
It's starting to take root, so maybe everyone's involved, but there's probably a bunch.
Yeah. Word. And then essentially just like it was like, yeah, as I said before, like Jackson's like he was born to be witch food essentially. Like he's gonna be fed to this baby witch that they're essentially like breeding, and the fact that like because he's like the fact that like his parents are high horns, they have to die, but also because inevitably Jackson's also a high horn, which means that he also has to die as well, and which as I said before, like Seb doesn't want that, but like he's an iron at the end of the day. So it transitions back to the next day, where Jackson and Sebastian they're at Jackson's house, obviously like practicing, testing out the car that they made for the competition, and essentially Jackson wants to show Sebastian something, and he pulls up. He said that he might have gotten some sort of infection, and is like and it's like and the other day and you're like fucking it's not fun, and it's like what kind of infection? He lifts his shirt up and we just see this like veiny like necrosis type deal, and it's very disgusting, and it Hanna, right, it looks kind of similar to what Charlie had with Clara giving him that message.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the same. I feel like it's pretty standard of like symptoms of when you're like been pledged.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah.
Said no.
Wait, what happened?
When you were talking about the pledge thingy, I was like, oh, kind of like that rash that the kid had, and you're like, no, not like that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about something else, because one of the main characters had something on her neck.
Oh, no. I mean like Charlie's like stomach, remember?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's the same thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, he's not like Lynn, he's not pledged. Like it's a different scenario because like
Okay.
he's being bred. He's being bred for food. So like it's not like they went out and like got a random
Yeah.
kid and pledged him, you know? And he's basically yeah. So essentially, he shows Sebastian his disgusting infection, quote unquote, and he just saying like, look, he's like, yeah, like it freaked me out a bit, but like it's fine. Like my parents have given me like some blood thinners and some medication, so like it would go away soon. But then obviously like Sebastian knows what this is, and he's saying it's like it like he knew, like he said, I knew exactly what it was, and like it wasn't really an infection, like it was it was like this it essentially like it's a way for like to like ripe. It's like a ripening process that his family like put him under essentially, so that it like it tastes so like he's gonna be ready to be eaten by the baby witch. And which means that like if since this is since he's showing signs of ripening, that he's gonna be eaten like rather soon. um and essentially while he like Sebastian feels like now like I actually want to tell like Sebastian wants what's going on because he wants to save him. And then it trends, and then next thing you know, his parents, Jackson's parents, call Jackson up for dinner and then offer Sebastian as well to join them. Sebastian's obviously hesitant because he knows who they really are, but obviously to keep his cover, he does so. um so then he's eating dinner, and essentially like while he they're getting ready for dinner, essentially he's essentially analyzing Jackson's mom and dad, and which I find what I think is very interesting how smart this kid is, because he's literally like he's talking about their mannerisms, like what this means, like their eyes are going and what that means, and like the fact that like his mom is holding like some silverware, acting like she's like getting settled, but in reality is in case Sebastian does something she can like attack him. And it's very interesting. And they're just making small talk, and essentially she's asking them like, oh, how's school, like how's the car going along. They're acting very normal, but even though they're like they're sus. And the way that I like that Scott Snyder writes this, it's like they're acting a little sus, like they're like maybe they are normal, like it's appearing like maybe they're just are a normal family, but like obviously like like don't doubt that like they are who Clara claims them to be. And then but like thing is like they're also asked like, oh, why have you eaten anything, like why, like do you not like the food, like what's happening? He's like, no, I just don't know what is this, it's meat. And like, or like, what is this? He's like, oh, this is juice, like come on, we're not trying to kill you or anything.
Well, the funny thing is like how Jackson points it out, that he's like, yeah, man, these potatoes are weird. You don't have to lie to my parents. This shit smells weird.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like,
Like,
well,
they're special from like where we're from.
yeah, word. Yeah, it's like the potatoes. It's like oh yeah, they're just a different breed of potato from like where we're originally from. That's why they taste a little funny to you.
But kids really be like that though.
They do, yeah.
He literally says it smells like swamp butt.
I don't have to lie to my parents. This shit is bad.
Yeah, word. But essentially like after like Sebastian takes a bite, he starts feeling a little funny, and then he's just saying like um but and he's like I need to go, and then he starts to leave. But like I love like before that happens though, like I love the panels, like the scene where just like then he's like I suddenly see it, and like he's like the look in his mom's eye, sorry, because she has an eye patch. The fact that like it's like the look of like like when a person's hungry because she's staring directly at Jackson.
And her pupils are dilated.
Yeah, and her pupils are like mad dilated, and which means that like essentially because her pupils are dilated and look like she's hungry. Like they're actually the eyes of the witch. They're like connected to this baby witch. So like the fact that like she looks like she's hungry means that the witch is actually hungry, which which is very interesting. And it actually like it kind of reminds me of when we did the volume 1 where I think Hanna, if you could back me up on this, when the sheriff when the police officer Petal was like, talking about, how Charlie was going into the cauldron, how he was getting warmer, and like the fact that he was outside of the burrow. I feel like this kind of establishes that like people that actually do stuff for the witches, like the High Horns or the Sucklers, they actually are somewhat connected to the witches in some way.
Yeah, I would say so because like they're the ones trying to please them and bring them their food. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, Sebastian leaves. He's starting to feel funny, and like obviously he's like, "Damn it, these potatoes weren't fucking right," and he starts to fucking throw up, and like pass out. And then he passes out on the street. Then he wakes up in on like a gurney strapped down and with his mom facing him. Obviously he's freaking out. He's like, what the hell happened? Like, help me please. Like he's just begging, but then it's his mom that shows up. And essentially I forgot to mention this, but essentially Sebastian, his mom has given him growing up, mom has given him a series of various like inoculations and like medicines that like the irons have developed so that like you can be immune to any of the witches quote unquote like alchemy and magic, right? So Sebastian had this immunity, and essentially what his mom's explaining here that like Jackson's parents I think suspected you. They suspected you. They knew about your inoculations and like the medicine you've been taking to have no so to resist the witches potions and alchemy. So one moment you ate that shit, you passed out. That was your body. That was their whatever they've done to you. They just got rid of all your inoculations, so now you're vulnerable. And essentially, she sticks him with an inoculation, just to be sure, you know, just to be sure. I think either she sticks him with something or she takes blood. I don't really remember.
She sticks
Uh,
with something.
yeah, yeah, she sticks him with something, which is probably going to, I believe, maybe like give him his immunity like back, so he's not less vulnerable. But then she goes to Gage, and she wants just to keep him strapped under that gurney for observation. And then it transitions back to him and Jackson at school. They essentially got their grade back. They're basically like talking about like the teachers giving them their assignments of their family trees, and I love the fact that it says it's they she his teacher gave Sebastian a C+ because and puts a sticky note that says too much left unknown, which I think is very interesting because he can't tell him either Sebastian doesn't really know the extent of his family history or the fact that like he does know but just doesn't obviously has to keep it a secret. And it
I think.
transitions back to um Jackson and Sebastian back at his either at his house or it's at yeah, it's at Jackson's house, and Jackson was looking a lot worse. Which essentially like the ripening process is still is probably in its like final stage, and he's about to be ready to be fed because like, and I like how Sebastian describes like I can almost smell the rot like coming off of him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like damn son. Uh-huh. And essentially, like he spent hours, and then Sebastian just said, like, he said he went into the bunker and spent hours trying to figure out a way to reverse what his parents or has given to him, as his parents was giving him, and like, but like he barely knew anything about the science, so like he couldn't figure out anything in like the science aspect. And then listening's like, I could tell him, like, about what's happening, and essentially he gets a knock on his window in the middle of the night. Sebastian's being like, "Listen, Seb, like, you have to let me in. I think my parents are up to no good. Like, they're trying to I think like they're trying to they're trying to kill me essentially. They're gonna do something to me, and I'm freaking the fuck out. And then he also like has been saying that like he feel like he knew that his parents were off for a long time. The fact that like he saw a kid, that he saw like a cousin or something or a family friend of his that came out of nowhere. And then like one time he accidentally knocked off his hair. Turned out it was a wig, and that he was bald. And he had these symbols carved into his head. So it's implied that like his Jackson's family they've been having kids and feeding them the witches for a very long time. And the thing is like he never saw it again. He never saw this kid again, and they just assumed that he passed away from cancer. That's what his parents told him. And then essentially like he's saying like they're gonna feed me to something, blah blah blah. And he's like, Jackson, I believe you. And then they essentially go. He takes him to the bunker to essentially get the rub that Gage created to stop to defend them, to kill the witch and to kill Jackson's parents. Transitions back to and Jackson and Sebastian walking into the woods, essentially, and um essentially like walking to this pit. They're trying to find the pit that Clara says that they're building to find this burrow, and essentially he's just thinking like, listen, I hope like Sebastian told him like I hope we don't like I hope I don't have to use this on Jackson at some point. Like I hope he's not tricking me because he's still not sure if he's in cahoots or not. He could be lying to him. But essentially they're walking in the woods and they find uh this gigantic fucking pit in the woods. And it's like we're and basically like Jackson says, it's too late, we're here. And um now and then transitions back to Sebastian and Jackson, like confronting this pit. That essentially, like, some Jackson's like, here, like this will kill whatever's down there, the witch that's trying to eat that your parents are gonna feed you to. And he's like, you want me to do it? And he's like, yeah, you're like you have to do it, like are you happy the one to do this? And essentially, he grabs the rub, and it's like Jackson obviously like he's just saying team bad egg. It's like, yeah, team bad egg. Everything is very cute. And then Jackson saying like, whatever's down there is like whatever you are. Like I don't care. I don't care what my parents say. Like you're never gonna get me. You can never have me, no matter how much they love you. And it's just like, damn son. And then essentially, Jackson is about to throw the thing right in the pit, and then he gets hit with something and then falls straight into it, and you're just like, what the fuck? And then Sebastian also gets hits at something as well, and then it is revealed that the parents were right behind them all along, watching them, and essentially, uh, Jackson is down in the hole, pleading for his life, being like, "Mom, please let me out." But then it looks like Jackson louder. You get like, his parents are fucked. His parents are messed up, and they're just basically like, "Oh, like Jackson, louder, louder." You'll bring it right to you, like and essentially like saying that like then like basically like the Jackson's dad tells Sebastian like, yeah, listen, you nothing at all. Like, see, we knew who you were. We knew your plan, that your parents you and your mom's plan to come down and kill our precious baby, and like and kill our precious baby. And but the thing is like it was inevitable because we have a mole on the inside. And essentially like and then you start hearing like the sound again in the pit, and the mom is essentially like looking down at Jackson being like, he's like, Carl, come here, you have to see this, like you have to see her, she's grown so much, like that's it, baby girl, come out and eat. And like it's wild because like, they have like a disregard for their actual kid because they see him nothing as just food for the witch, and it's so messed up. And like Jackson's begging for his life, and all you just hear is like him just saying like, no, get away. And she starts to scream, and it's like and you see like Sebastian like crawling towards the dad, being like, leave me alone, leave him alone, like, you animal. And it's like, you don't ever talk to me, you don't ever talk to her like that. It's like, don't disrespect my wife like that. And basically like while like Sebastian's down, his parents Jackson's parents start looking over the pit and being like, Carl, she's so beautiful, like come look at her. says like, wow, like she got so big, and like that's it, eat up, and like you just hear just his son begging for his life and like just screaming, and it's just like Sebastian, gets his bearings, like gets a second wind, grabs the rub, and he's like, it's like I'm coming for you, Jackson, and throws the rub all over all over Jackson's dad, and since he's very like high horn, uh the instead of like as we said like if you're a high horn, like it will just burn you, you won't like die, but since they're so high up, they like he literally just gets set on fire and just dies. And his mom, and then Sebastian's mom goes berserk and is about to go and kill Sebastian, and then she decides to she lifts him up and throws him down into the pit along with Jackson, and then he fumbles down and then sees uh Jackson's like bloodied and like beat up, like he's got some bites taken out of him, and then essentially like he's saying like, listen, like where's your parents? And it's like he's like your parents are dead. Yeah, because the mom also fell down with Jackson as well and broke her neck. Um, he's like, your parents are dead. And he's like, listen, you have to run, bro. You have to run. Why? Because the witch is right behind you. I love this panel. I'm just like, it's so well done. I love Jock's style when it comes to horror. It's so interesting and like very horrifying. But you see this baby witch, making that shit sound coming right at Sebastian. And Sebastian, instead of running, he decides to like draw the witch away from him to save his best friend. Um, and essentially he like the witch starts to attack him, and he is about to like literally about to get eaten. He attacks him. He's about to get eaten by this witch, and essentially what happens is the witch the baby witch gets the rub on it. It starts to burn. Uh, and then next thing you know, it's found out that like Jackson just saved Sebastian's life, and it's like amazing. And yeah, like so then after so the witch dies, and then after that, essentially like Sebastian's trying to like get Jackson to safety, and essentially like obviously he's badly hurt, he's not gonna make it, and essentially he's like Sebastian, shut up, like remember the race tomorrow, remember to like like to be safe on the turns. If you're not safe on the turns, you're not the car's gonna like go off the track. It's a very like intimate heart to heart moment with between two friends, and then he's like Sebastian's like, listen, no, we're gonna get you out of here, like come on, like it's gonna be fine, like you just have to hold on, like, we're in this together, like team bad egg. And then like Jackson dies, and Sebastian says basically like narrating saying like I sat there for a long time, and like but like in some part of me knew that like even that he was is like he was essentially like my best friend. He was my best friend that I ever had, like the only friend I've ever had. And but then I remember like what Jackson's parents said, and the fact that like about their friend, um about their friend from the Irons helping them, and he's like the traitor, and he immediately assumed it's Gage. So now out of now for revenge, he's going to hunt down Gage and try to kill him. And essentially he gets the rub, and then essentially is he can hear someone coming, and he says, yep, it's Gage, like, oh, it's about to be it, revenge is gonna fucking happen. And it is revealed, and that person, and you see someone in the light, and this person calls Ruby. He's like, Ruby, Carl, I'm here. And then it's revealed to be his mom, and you're just like, the fuck. This shocked me. I was like, holy shit, like that's a good twist. uh so it essentially is revealed to be his mom. Sebastian obviously can't believe it. He's like, what the fuck? Like, you're the suckler. Like, you traded me to them. Like, you wanted them to fucking eat me. And she's just like, what? No. Like, how could you even say that? He's like, I caught Gage trying to deal. I caught Gage trying to deal with them. And so I was coming here to save you. And she's like, don't lie. He's like, don't lie to me. I know you're with them. And then she's like, after all you've put me through, like after all how my life's been, especially with you and dad separating, all that stuff, like you could just feed me to them. and it's just like, tell me the truth, or I'm gonna have to kill you. And she's like, literally just says like, all right, then I'll tell you the fucking truth then. He's like, I never fucking wanted you. You're such a burden. Like, you literally made my life. I feel so ashamed. I'm just sick of you. I'm sick of being ashamed. I'm just like, I tried with you back, Sebastian. I tried to like, let you be, the coward, like let you be the strong iron you're supposed to be, but you're a fucking coward. You're just like your father, fucking pussy or fucking wimp. Like literally, I'm ashamed to be like literally like he's like I'm ashamed. He's like I've hated all these years. Have of all the work I've done, it was a waste of my time. And he's like, and he's just saying like, Mom, stop it. Like you actually don't mean this. He starts to cry, and he's just saying like, listen. He's like, listen, I'd rather switch sides. I'd rather switch sides and have to look at you another second. I'm so ashamed of you. And it's like it's like, I said like it's like you're fucking disgusting. Like you fucking disgust me. I wish you were never born. And then he decides to throw the fucking rub all over his mom. And then she starts to burn. She's like, "Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts so much." And he's just like, "I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry I had to do this." And then she just starts like, "It hurts so much to have to wait. So just have to wait this long to haha." And she starts to laugh. He's like, "To hug you." And he's just like, "What?" And so like, "Yeah, no, it was just a test, and you passed." So yeah, his mom's actually a good guy.
Yeah, I was much happier with that twist because the first one I kind of saw, I was like,
Uh-huh.
man, it'd be too obvious for it to be the mom. Like it's like
Yeah.
top betrayal. And I was like, that's kind of the easy way out. But the fact that she was like, no, 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 I was just making sure if you need to kill me, you will.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so funny. It was a good turn because I was actually very upset that like if that she was the traitor the entire time. But turns out Gage was the traitor. So Sebastian was right. Uh so then anyways, they're just like, listen, like he's like he's like, but why? Why would you do that? It's like, because you're my son and this is who we are. Like I had to test you eventually. And essentially so they go back, they essentially like they decide to like, let's get moving. And they had to go back home. And turns out like his mom had already knew that this plan was going to happen like today, like the parents would feed Jackson today. And she already had and she was prepared to kill them, but Sebastian already beat her to it. And she just essentially like already had everything packed, ready to go. So they're gonna be moving they're gonna be moving like the moment they get back home. But she decided, she figured that like, they would leave, in the morning instead, so that like in the next morning instead, because she wanted Jackson to experience the race because inevitably he lost a friend, even though his friend was on the wrong side. And that her is were the parents of High Horns. But he it was basically wanted to essentially she essentially gave him a sort of a vacation, to have this moment. She memorized Jackson's notes just in case this would happen, in case Jackson wouldn't be there, which she knew this would inevitably happen. So she was right alongside him, in honor of Jackson, um, go doing this racetrack. And essentially says it was the nicest thing she ever did for me. It was a sort of a reward for what I did, and it was for me. It was the last moment to say goodbye. And I love what he says at the end. It's like, but it wasn't anything special by then. Just us, a car, and a track, standard issue, and then it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's essentially it. Nah, it's So uh any final thoughts on which is Bad Egg Halloween special, people?
No, again, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to getting into the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
The I've always loved like hunter sort of storylines, and I think this is a really interesting take on uh it's a fresh monster.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've seen before. Especially with like the extra layer of this monster works through humans, like it works through other people, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a really fascinating concept, and that I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was Hannah, you have any thoughts on Bad Egg?
Honestly, I really liked it more than the original plot.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like it gives you more insight, like because they only touched on witch hunters in the original plot, but now you actually get to see like how they work and how they operate. So I
Yeah,
think that's why I like it better than the original.
yeah, same here. I mean, hmm, sorry, but yeah, I mean, the main story was really good, but like I wanted to get more. What I wanted more out of it was more of the like what the who the Irons were, and like that perspective, which obviously Scott Snyder was saving for, um with the sequel. But yeah, it was very dope, like having the the perspective of like how the Irons operate and work through a child, and I thought that was very interesting, a very good like narrative. You know, yeah, this was really dope. This I feel like because I remember when talking to when I at the end of the Witches episode we did last week that Scott Snyder, like his inspiration for the story was essentially like his adventures like growing up in like growing up in his vacation house in Pennsylvania and like going on adventures in the woods with his friend, with a childhood friend of his, and then inevitably getting inspired to create the story Witches through those experiences. That like especially like I think this shows this is like an homage and like an he basically a dedication to that friendship that he had with the kid growing up essentially with this story. And yeah, it's very sweet. It's very sweet. I love Sebastian as a character. Like he's as well as a really good character, along with Stan Rook in the first volume. Um, yeah, and I'm excited to see because I forgot to say this, but yeah, when his mom said that like when they're about to move, they're gonna be moving to New Hampshire, and what me and Hannah know, and for our audience who've watched the first episode, know that the Rook family moved to Litchfield, New Hampshire. So essentially with the sequel, um Sailor Sebastian will be coming back for the sequel, and him and Sailor will maybe cross paths.
I
Uh,
hope they do.
I really hope they do because that would be really dope.
Yeah, it would.
Um, but yeah, this is fantastic. This is a great story, great writing, of course. Poor Jackson. R.I.P. to Jackson. Uh, he was a he was a real one, a true friend. He did not deserve what he got. That was fucked up.
I was really hoping he'd pull through, and he didn't, and I was sad.
Yeah, I was like, damn, son. He didn't deserve that. But like, yeah, more great story, more of the I'm really liking the lore that Snyder's coming up with the mythology of with the witches. I think it's so interesting. Um like I love the fact that like they make people to make new burrows for themselves. And it's so
Yeah,
interesting.
I was thinking about that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
One can even argue that, like, because, like, I feel like the whole story makes it look like the witches are the bad guys, but if you think about it, they're just trying to survive. So I feel like the real villains are,
Mm.
like, the ones working for them. They're just trying to get some food. They're just trying to eat. It just happens that they eat humans. You
Yeah.
can't blame them
Yeah.
from trying to survive as a species.
Wow, that's actually a really good perspective though. No, actually no, that makes sense.
No, I agree.
And even like when we see in volume one and in this as well, the humans that work for the witches are awful people.
Yeah, so I feel
Like
like
they're
it's like the
terrible.
humans are the villains.
So like they're inevitably the real villains of the
Moral of the
entire
story:
story.
humanity sucks.
Yeah, humanity sucks. That's the moral of the story. But yeah, any more thoughts on volume two? I mean the Bad Egg Halloween special?
Oh, I don't know if I didn't say this earlier, but in the beginning, I don't think you're gonna get this because it's like a TikTok reference. But like in the beginning, when like Sebastian heard like the sound in the van, I immediately thought of that like one sound that goes, "That's weird. That's suspicious."
Oh,
That's funny.
yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't, but I still think that's funny. But yeah, no, good. And also Jock's art, of course, well done. I love. Wait, actually, Lynn, what's your opinion on Jock's art? I want to get your opinion on.
Incredible. It's such an interesting style.
Word. Oh, it's so good.
It's,
I've said this before, but like I'm like a really big Jock fan. I'm like one of his. I love Jock a lot. His art's so good. His style's so interesting.
gonna have to look in more of his stuff.
I literally just got for our audience, I just bought this book. It's like it's a screenplay for the movie Dread, and Jock does the art he was the concept artist for the Dread film because he worked on Judge Dredd, and essentially like they have the script and he decided to easier translate it. The script, instead of doing a storyboard, he made the script into a comic book. So you just see his artwork alongside the script, and it's very fucking nice.
Nice.
But yeah, he's great. He can draw horror. Like this book proved that like he could draw horror for sure. Because this is like his first horror series that he's done. So yeah, but anyway, yeah. So nothing else. No other thoughts. No other thoughts.
Not that I can think of.
All right, Hanna.
I don't think I have anything to add, really.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, but it's good stuff. I really hope that Volume 2 comes out soon. I really hope so.
There's no release date?
From what I can see, which is Volume 2, let me look that up right now. I don't think there's a release date. No. Yeah, like, nah,
When did Volume 1 come out?
Volume 1 came out in, let's see, Volume 1 of Wytches came out, I think in 2014.
Oh wow.
So
it's been like 6 years.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like COVID probably is gonna push it further.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he was planning on he was writing it while he was doing DC stuff with Jock because they did like the Batman Who Laughs stuff at DC, and they were planning on writing afterward. But I guess COVID probably slowed it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I see a tweet here. It says the promise between me and my brother Jock and you all was we go right back to Wytches afterward after Batman Who Laughs. So we will do the next big chapter as soon as the Batman Who Laughs is done. And the Batman Who Laughs ended like last year. That series. So yeah, COVID definitely pushed it down because he's doing other independent work right now with Image and all other stuff. But hopefully we'll see. Hopefully next year, maybe. I don't know.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be dope. But all right, so I'll close it off. So thank y'all for checking us out. If you all want you want to read this book for yourself, buy it at your local comic book store, get it at Comixology. It's good stuff. Highly recommend. Yeah, that concludes our spooky special. Listen, like I'm so used to Christian doing the outro because he does it better than me, but like I guess yeah, be safe. Don't lick toilet seats, don't lick swings, don't go near anybody. If someone tries to go up to you, drop kick them away from you. And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Don't go crazy. Party maximum of 10 people. Wash your damn hands. And yeah, that's it. See y'all. Bye-bye. Get home safe.
Bye.
Get home safe.